If you could describe radical acceptance and self-care in one word, phrase, or mantra, what would it be?
Probably just freedom. There is a freedom in those moments. And I think as queer folks, we experience it a lot as we come into our identities, as we come into the people that we love, as we build our communities. It's almost like that layer just continues to like shed and shed and shed. And then you start to realize how much happier and more relaxed and honestly just more free you feel to be yourself.
Welcome, Queer Kittens and new earballs. I'm V, a two-spirit human, joy influencer, energy worker, and a dad joke connoisseur. All pronouns accepted. We are a podcast where we help queer folks find radical acceptance and love for themselves and for others. And wherever you are in your wellness journey, just know you're not alone. We hope this podcast brings you joy, where you'll learn, laugh, heal, and grow. I have a confession to share with y'all. This whole time, I thought I was Gay4Bey. Then I met Shana Sumers, the co-host of the Bad Queers pod, showed me I am nowhere near as Gay4Bey, which is gay for Beyoncé. For those of y'all that are like, what in the world? Gay for Beyoncé, but Gay4Bey. It just sounds fun. And in case you're like, who the heck is Shana Sumers? If you missed episode 23, where we featured one of our favorite pods, Bad Queers, go the heck back and listen to it so you know who she is. If not, I guess you can listen to this one and then you go back to episode 23. But Shaina has been a staple in the community here in the Bay Area, now is newly located in Chicago. I knew them when they worked for the Her app here in Bay Area and started a podcast called Bad Queers. And then now 9 to 5 corporate baddie, being a DE&I manager. Yes, I didn't know what it meant either. Diversity, equity, and inclusion manager. So basically what she does is builds communities online and in person so that like most of the folks that listen of us who are often underestimated for our backgrounds and identities, she basically puts folks in opportunities to meet people who look like you to help you get a little further in the professional goals, because you see somebody who looks like you and you can actually connect with them. Come on. So in the rest of this episode, you're going to hear the power of community building. You're going to hear her experience of being Black and queer in this moment of history. You get to learn a little bit of her self-care routine, which actually I definitely took a few notes off of and will be putting into my own routines. So without further ado, here's Shaina.
I'm Shaina. I use she, her pronouns. I'm based out of Chicago, and I am one half of the podcast duo from Bad Queers podcast. And in my day-to-day job, because fun fact, friends of mine actually thought that I did podcasting full time. And that was a big compliment for me. But I was also like, no, not yet. But in my day-to-day job, I am a senior manager of like diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging communities. I basically provide identity-based professional spaces for folks to be able to join and have a safe space to build a network that helps to elevate their career in whatever ways they want. Some fun facts about me: I used to be a music therapist. I played lots of instruments, and then I switched into community. And I am a gold member of the Beyhive because Beyoncé is my girl. If you didn't think she was down for the queers, you didn't listen to Renaissance and didn't see any of the stories that happened. She's about us, and I'm about her. I've been about her since I was 9. She's the longest relationship in my life. I also play flag football. That's where I found most of my like queer community and things. So that's been fun to be able to do. And I have a cat. His name is Emmett. He might interrupt this recording. So if you just hear like a little headbutt against the microphone, it's him. And yeah, I'm ready to get started. I'm so excited to be here.
So excited to have you. Yes. I actually thought you did podcasting full time.
It's such an honor to think that like I have the time to do this full time. Like that's the goal and that's the hope. But no, I do not do this full time. I have to work regular 9 to 5. I'm a manager. Like people trust that I'm going to get things done and that I'm going to guide their careers and stuff, which is a wild thing to say as well. But yeah, no.
You have that nurturing vibe, though.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that suits you very well. I think you're trustworthy.
I try to be. It helps me get away with a lot of stuff at work too, so we'll take it. Corporate has nothing on me, and that's all I have to say.
Well, I do want to dive into the corporate stuff, but I'm gonna do that after because we've created a fun segment just for you, and and it ties into you talking about gold member status. What the heck is gold member status?
Yes. I'm so glad you asked. That is a great question. So you know how Beyonce's acting career is a bit slim, but she was in Austin Powers Gold member. Yeah. So it's a play on that, as well as stating there are some people who I put at like platinum status, who they don't care how much money they have in the bank. They will be at every show. If she drops something, they are purchasing everything. If you ask them any sort of trivia question, they know everything down to the date, the hour, the minute that she did XYZ things. They know where she is at all times, which is wild because Beyonce does not share where she goes. That's where I put like the platinum status people, where it's like Beyonce is their personality, is their thing. Me, Beyonce is something I am a huge fan of. Do I know an absurd amount of facts and knowledge about her? Yes. Do I go to more than one show? This year I did. This year I went to 3 of her Renaissance tour shows. I prepared for those though. Had my Beyonce account. And I have been saving since she headlined Coachella because I said the next thing she's going to do is going to be huge. So I had 4 years of savings ready to go for this tour. I do own something from every one of her drops, but it's only like a couple of things from each drop. I think I had 3 or 4 that I was like, I need to have almost everything from here, but I didn't get everything. And I still do get some trivia wrong. So I am a couple of tiers down, but I am higher than the average person. And that's how I define gold member.
Okay, let's test your skills then with this new segment that we're going to be calling Gay4Bey.
My status is about to go down immediately.
Okay, here we go. What is her most underrated song?
Oh, I like that. I like where this is going. Because there's not a correct answer, is there? I like this.
No.
Her most underrated song. Well, I would tie this with the song with the video as well. Sweet Dreams is one of her most underrated songs. That song is a bop. And the video is iconic. And people do not give Sweet Dreams enough respect that it deserves. Does not.
I now I have to go watch that.
It's such a good video.
Because the answer to mine, mine was so horrible.
What was yours?
But it was Blow.
Honestly, I think that's an underrated song too. Because that video was also iconic. It's such a good song.
It just makes me happy.
It's such a good song.
Yeah. Okay, next question. How many times have you seen her live?
12? 12 or 13 times? Yeah. I think that's because this one shot it up. I think I was at like 9 before this, but I think I missed one. So I was either at 9 or 10. So I'm at like 12 or 13 now.
How old were you on your first one?
The first time I saw her, I was in 8th grade, but it was unfortunate because I only got to see her for like 2 songs because it was the ladies' first tour.
Oh no.
So this was the ladies' first and only tour. Honestly, it was unfortunate because it was a dope concept. So it was Missy Elliott, Alicia Keys, and then Beyonce. And apparently I had food poisoning that whole day. Like the whole day we were wandering. We went to see her in DC and I wasn't feeling well the whole day. We had to keep stopping. I was like, I'm not going to eat. I'm nothing, none of this. So once we got to the show, we sat through Missy. Missy was fantastic. We got through Alicia Keys. Alicia Keys did her thing. At that point, I was hungry. So I was like, yeah, let's go eat. So we go and get a pretzel. We get a drink. Beyonce comes out with her first big note. I get so excited that I think I just ended up making myself sick because I got so hype. As I stood up, I sat back down. I looked at my mom. My mom was like, in her face, because she doesn't curse, but her face was like, oh shit. So she just basically grabbed me and like took me out into the hallway to run to the nearest bathroom. We got to the bathroom. It's like trash can, a little bit of space, me. I vomited everywhere. And I was devastated. So mind you, this is my first time seeing Beyonce. And I'm in the bathroom just like, I was here and I just wanted to see Beyonce. And like all of the women who are in the bathroom are being so nice to me. And so we get back in, and mind you, my friend who would come with me stayed in her seat the whole time. So she was like, no, I'm not missing this. She stayed right in her seat, didn't go anywhere. She got to see an amazing show. I came back in by the time Beyonce hit her beautiful Dangerously in Love notes. And then she went backstage. She came back out. Jay-Z came out. They did Crazy in Love. It was fantastic. And that was all that I got to see of her. And then I didn't get to see her again until I was in college. I was devastated. I was like, this is not how it was supposed to go. So now I am very cautious on the days of her concert to be able to like eat things that like should not get me sick, hopefully. And I'm very careful. I check all the expiration dates. I check everything. I'm like, nope, it's a whole thing. And I refuse to be sick at any of her shows anymore. And thankfully I have not, but that one stuck with me.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, that's an incredible story. I would never forget that either. And the Beyhive came in to take care of you.
They sure did. I was so upset. They gave me like a big trash bag in case I did throw up again. They were like, then you don't have to run out of here. I said, thank you so much.
So you could still watch her and throw up. Oh, that's funny. Okay, so next question. What's your favorite album?
4. No hesitation.
Is it called 4?
Yeah, it's called 4. What? V, don't
sorry.
make me. Don't. I was like, and that was a great podcast episode. We'll see you next week. Yes, that was the first album that she put out after she like fired her dad and like most of her team and stuff. So it was Deja Vu, because yeah, she did Dangerously in Love, and then she did the second album, then she did the I Am, and then it was 4. So 4 was the first album that she did post having her dad as management. So that's where Love on Top, that's where Party, 1+1, I Care, Countdown, End of Time, School and Life, like all of those. That was, I will argue to this day, because Renaissance almost got up there. Renaissance did. It might be tied because Renaissance is the one no skip album of all of her stuff. But when 4 came out, it was just different, and it wasn't one of her most popular albums that came out. And folks thought that she made a poor decision at that point by letting her dad go, letting go a lot of her team. But that is the album that she is vocally the best on, in my opinion. And she uses it for all of her live shows, the best transitions, the best mixes, the best a cappella. Like if you watch Homecoming and her whole band, like the choir folks in the band who sing Party, the harmonies are impeccable. Everything about it, I was like, you couldn't have had Homecoming without 4 by any means. So
I need to do my Beyonce homework.
4 is it.
If you could count how many total hours spent listening to Beyonce, what would you total that?
The limit does not exist. The limit does not exist. In terms of I'm probably going to listen to her after this. Like, it's just so much. Like I said, I've been listening to her since I was 9. And that's that's like CDs popped in, listening, when radio blasting it, all the mixes, all of the things. Yeah, the limit does not exist in the hours.
Oh, yeah, her vocals. I remember listening to her vocals on Emotions.
Okay.
And I
And
would
when
just
she would
like,
get into it in like the live shows,
yes.
I was like, bye, girl. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, my little self trying to keep up.
We didn't know what emotions we were singing about, but then it hits today and you're just like, damn. We were in our emotions. They were taking me over. I was caught up in sorrow.
Yes.
Like
100%. Oh, I love that. Okay, so last question. In 3 words or less, your review of her new songs, Texas Hold'em and 16 Carriages.
3 words or less. Oh, man. Honestly, like probably like Black History Made. That's probably what I give her. Because damn, the way that she has, I was recently deep diving on this, as I do during the day, because she's just gotten all of these number ones, and Texas Hold'em was the most recent number one that has hit the global charts. And her number ones span like 4 or 5 different genres of music. So to see the range that she has, it's like, that's literally, people are forever going to talk about this. She has shown up in every genre. She's coming for your genres is what's happening. And it's fantastic to see.
Yeah, I seen something like that on Instagram. Somebody is like saying like rock, pop, country. And I was just like, damn, house, all of that. I was like, she really has hit them all. And she's continuing to just blossom in all these different things. And you saying Black History Live is what,
Black History
what
Made.
you said, the 3 words? Black History Made. Got me thinking, like, for you, what does it mean to be Black and queer in this moment?
In this day and age when we get to exist in Beyonce's internet as well, it's just incredibly, like, the first word that comes to my head is empowering, but I don't feel like that's the right word. I feel like that's an under the umbrella of it. But really it's just me. And I think a lot of folks see anything that is not cis and white and most likely male and straight and financially sound and just like a general storyline that has been fed to us during all of this time. And here I come as a Black queer woman who works in corporate, who's a cat mom, who does all of these things. It's like me just existing pushes against the narrative that the world has been trying to put against us. And it's a common denominator because when we look across different identities, when we look across different backgrounds, a lot of our issues aren't very different. And it's great to be able to be myself and have that either make an impact on other people, allow other people to just feel comfortable. For some people, it makes them feel like they can do a lot of shit. And I'm like, it's not how that works. But the feeling is natural. The feeling is freeing. And to just be Black and queer today in this like in between, especially because I'm a millennial, to see Gen Z coming out in the way that they are. And I'm just like, go ahead, y'all. Do the things. But then to still see folks our parents' age and the generation above our parents' age either fighting against it, starting to support it, trying to understand it, is like a really cool in-between to be in as well. So it's almost like we get to like float in this area where we see the progress that's coming, and we also are still working to fight against the regression that is also happening amongst like all these bills and all these different things. So it's almost like, if I could best describe it, I would probably just put it as like Janelle Monáe's float, where it's like you just feel good about who you are and how you're being, and you can just be out here existing. But in either direction, there's an opportunity to make an impact, to support, to be there, and continue to just be you and do you. That was a long-winded answer for that question.
No, that was beautiful. That was beautiful because it kind of ties into the next line of questioning. Because when I met you, like, I think I was working I met you prior to that when you were doing like community building for her, but we got closer when I was working at the arcade bar at Detour in the Castro. So, and I remember you like throwing a lot of community events, and we actually started this podcast in the thoughts and with the wording of community is the cure. And I just wanted to like maybe dive a little deeper in what you did at her, what you're doing with Bad Queers, and what you're doing at your 9 to 5, and talk about like the impact that you are having not only on the community's well-being, but even your own. I know that's a long-winded question.
Yeah. Well, first, thank you for that recognition, because it's so funny when we were discussing this before, and just to process on the fact that, I have been doing this for a minute. This was not anything I expected to be doing, not anything that was on the plan, especially if you ask my parents that this is what I was supposed to be doing. But it's natural, and it's great to be able to do the work that I do. Each place that I've done for my 9 to 5 in community has been mission driven, even if it's not at a company that's necessarily has that as their main mission. They could have it as that, but at the end of the day, they still have to make a profit. But I can do good work, and I can give back to people who deserve it. So when I first started working at her, it was actually a surprise that I ended up getting that job. I'd mentioned before that I was a music therapist. I was at the point in my career where they were suggesting that folks go and get their master's degrees. And I really did not want to. I didn't want to be in more debt. I didn't want to do the things, but it was looking like that was the track I was going to be on. And if I was going to do it long term, I might as well go ahead and do it now. So I went to get my master's. I did it overseas. I lived in Australia for a year, got my master's there. And while I was there, I thought I was going to have way more classes and like way less time. And I ended up having the opposite. So it just so happened that I had joined the Her app, and it was in like its early stages, like recently launched, had just changed its name, all of that. And they were looking for ambassadors. And I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know what that looked like, but I knew at that time, and this was like 2024, no, not 2024. This was 2014 that I went to school. And when I found her and saw that they were doing this ambassador stuff, I had only come out like a year or two prior. So I was like, I really want to find my people. I want to find these groups. I want to learn more about the queer community. So I said, hey, I'm from the US. I'm living in Australia right now. Don't know what you would like, but just putting my name out there. And they came back and said, cool, well, can you write? And I said, well, I'm getting my master's degree. I hope I can write something. They asked me to write about my experience at Australia Pride, because that was coming up, and I got to go and do that. I got to see, this was when like Ruby Rose was at her height, and the Pride Festival there was phenomenal. And so I got to keep doing more things with her. So I had moved back. I had been injured while I was in Australia, so I had to come back and live at home for a bit. So I was like, I have time. There are other things you need me to do. They kept giving me more tasks. And then I ended up moving to Arizona for a job that made sense based on what I got my degree in, all the stuff I was doing. I did music therapy at a school for kids and adults with varying levels of disabilities, and it all made sense. Within the first 6 months of being there, I made a bunch of changes. I did a bunch of things. I said, wow, there is no upward movement here. And I'm just going to keep doing the same thing over and over and over again. And it's never the kids. It's more so like the work and being able, I'm very motivated by like upward mobility and being able to grow. But I was looking around at people who have been in their same jobs and their same roles for years, like decades even. And I was like, wow, no, this is like what I'm going to be doing. And at that point, Her had me do like a special project for a month. It was with social media, and I forget what the task was, but they were like, yeah, if you could do this and help it grow in like a month. And I was like, cool. They were like, we'll give you a little stipend. I was like, come on, money. And I went and did it. And then they stopped at the end of it, and they were like, cool. Hey, you did a great job on that. Do you want to work here? And I said, what?
Nice.
They're like, yeah, you want to work here. You want to come here and help build community and run our social media team. And I said, I've technically only been here like 6-7 months at that point. I just bought a lot of furniture. I was set up to be here. You know, I switched my license over. I did all of the things that set me up to be in Arizona for a long time. And in my head, I said, fuck it. When else are you going to be able to do this? I can always go back to music therapy. Mm-hmm. I can always go back to these things. So I said, give me a few months to handle my caseload, and I'll totally do it. I can work part-time up until I get to the office and work there full-time. So that happened. I moved. I convinced one of my really good friends to move with me because I quickly found out that the Bay was not for people who live by themselves, and I needed a roommate. And that was when I started community at Her, and that was a whole new journey. I think we went through like a brand change. We went through voice change. We went through office changes. We went through a lot of people coming in and out of working there in like really great ways. It was a whole new experience. And every day I was trying something new. Every day I was going off of stuff. And initially I was just working off my gut. I had the experience of working with people of varying abilities, as well as folks with like emotional and behavior disorders and things like that. So I had insight into other ways that we could be really inclusive and really welcoming and open for folks. I've also like naturally done leadership. I used to be a camp counselor. I used to captain like my soccer team. There were all of these things in my life had come to this point that I was helping to build a community that I was actively engaging with and learning about for myself while also growing it. So it was really amazing to be a part of the Her journey. And that was also how I met my co-host for my podcast, because she ended up working there as an events person, and she oversaw the entire event strategy, the plan. And I would just sit and bother her every single day around lunch, every day. And mind you, our office was small. It was like one room because there was like 10 of us, 12 of us at most. And I would sit after lunch to fight my food coma. I would just ask her absurd questions. I'd point out pop culture. I would ask about some random thing I saw on the internet or in the app and get her to like answer about it. And she was just like, we are literally sitting next to the CEO of this company. She was like, I just started working here. Please leave me alone. And I was like, we're not going to do that. We're going to be friends. And at that time I had been pitching for us to do a podcast. And then I got the bright idea that she should be my podcast host. So I asked her about it and she was down. And we started, and right after, because that whole year I had previously doing Chris, who is my podcast host, previously to her arriving, that was what I was doing, was pitching a podcast. It was at the time where podcasts were starting to get popular. A lot of the dating apps were doing podcasts, and I kept trying to figure out one that felt right, but none of them were hitting. And then finally, when Chris arrived and said yes, that's when Bad Queers came together. It was a fun time there. And then it got to a point where you stay at a job for a while. It's time to try some new things, test some new work. And so I ended up going to another job. I hated it, was there for 3 months, didn't like it. And then I ended up at my current job. And I work at this like software company called Hubspot, but I don't have to do anything with the software. I get to build communities for professionals of different identities. And right now we have a community for Black professionals. We're going to launch one soon for Latina professionals, and we're going to continue to launch more and more. And I just get to maintain the strategy for that and the plan. I have a dope team, and we've been able to build safe spaces. Like we host a conference every year, and we had an activation that was for Black professionals. It featured Black voices. Everything that we did was culturally relevant, and it was allowing the moments where like you walk into a professional conference and you really don't see anybody who looks like you, walks like you, talks like you, acts like you. So we wanted a space where you didn't have to code switch, where you could see other people like yourself, so you could be motivated by these folks. And the research and the percentages and things, they say that if we are able to network with our people, our success goes up. I was like, the biggest gap for most, 100%. A lot of people say underrepresented or minorities. I just say underestimated. Social capital is the biggest gap for us, which basically means we don't know those people who are in those leadership positions at these companies. You know, you can always say that Tom is the CEO at this Fortune 500 company, and Tom's friend has a son named Matthew. And because he likes Tom's friend, he's going to hire Matthew without taking him through the hiring process. And he's going to put him at a higher level position that most folks have to work hard for. So we're working to like decrease that and allow us to work together and build from there. So we're doing that now. That's what we're doing. That's my work journey.
That's incredible. I just think about most of the jobs that I was ever at, that either I felt pushed out because of speaking my mind when things weren't right, when people were being mistreated based off the color of their skin or based off of cultural diversities or any intersectionality that wasn't quote unquote the American norm or something, whatever, however you want to look at that. I think that these job spaces would just be safer. And I feel like someone like you is creating that safety, but also creating like a space where it's like, you can climb this ladder too. Not just like, oh, this is it for you. Like bringing that hope, you can continue to climb this ladder. That it's not only that when you get to this top of the ladder, it's just white. Like, no. There's space for you up here too. I really love that you're doing that. And I had no idea that that even existed until we did the feed drop of your episode on our, was it episode 23? I was just also thinking like not only like everything that you're telling us, but also I may or may not have peeked at your LinkedIn. And
that's a whole different person over there.
Right. Like, but I noticed that a lot of your things, you're in service of other people. What do you do for yourself?
Yeah.
In terms of like your well-being?
Yeah. That is, some days are better than others. Some weeks are better than others. Overall, first of all, I am very much the proponent of just sitting down and watching TV and vegging out. Like I won't touch anything. I won't do anything. I love getting lost in stories and some trashy reality TV. And that is a version of relaxing for myself. I also mentioned that like I play sports and stuff. That is my jam. Sports, gym, those are the things that I love. I try and have like a really solid nighttime routine because that's something that I can control for the most part, especially when I have really busy days. I'm like, you know what? The screen goes off. I have this whole night care routine. I'm reading before I go to bed. And that might just be a little moment that allows me to just rest and recharge, but it allows me to at least go to sleep with rest. And I also find joy in like my friends really like fill me. And so even if I have been on calls all day long, if one of my best friends hits me on FaceTime, if I get to get on a phone call with them, same with my nephew, he is just a bundle of joy. And if I get to get on calls with them, like I am full.
I love that. I love that. A nightly routine. I definitely been trying to implement that over here with like an alarm on the TV that turns off at a certain time every day. Like, okay, time to go to bed and read or write before bed, not just TV then bed.
Yeah, it definitely helps because I got off that for a while and it was like TV and then get on my phone and play games and then go to sleep off of that. It has helped with me and like being able to fall asleep on planes again because I just sit and like play a game and my body's like, oh, we got to go to sleep. And I'm like, yes, thank you. Because as I got older, I've gotten terrible at falling asleep on planes. So now I just play games and then I go to sleep. So that's great. But
guilty.
I got to go back.
Guilty.
I got to
Tetris.
Go back to, right? I was like, I'm minus Spider Solitary. So it's like, yeah. That's what you got to do. But that's the one that I can be most consistent about. And if you can find that one thing, then other little stuff will appear, even if it's not as consistent.
And now that we've talked about like your own well-being, I wanted to know like, why is it very important for you to build community?
Honestly, it's like the way that we should be doing things. I think it's the way the world works. As much as we get fed all of this really isolating, really toxic, really taxing news, always the inspirational news, always the exciting news comes from your community. Hearing the stories about like what people are doing to give back, to collaborate, to network, to celebrate, to grieve. Community is there for every aspect of your life. And, you know, it's a big world, but it can still get lonely. So having your people is awesome. I haven't been able to get anywhere without my community, whether it's the potential for a new job, teaching me a new skill, just being there for an ear or spontaneous trip or anything like that. Like having your people just allows you to have a foundation. And I think that's what communities are, is like your foundation. If you ever get lost or you might go off the rails, you might try something and it didn't end up working out, you can always come back to your foundation. And when you've built the right foundation, it's never going to break. So you got to be there with your people and build your foundation. It just makes the day-to-day much better.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think that like when we created the whole idea about like community is the cure, I think there's a big importance on like make that money, that individual, like being that the dog eat dog is that machine is fed. That machine is so fed that like I see a lot of the collective is coming back to community. It's just like seeing the importance of like it takes a village, like what that truly means.
Yeah, and those people who are doing boss work, they're not doing it by themselves. It may look like it because they're the ones featured in their content and the work, but there's so many people behind the scenes. There's that first friend who reposted whatever they shared. There's that person who stayed up late with them to study for XYZ thing. Like there's so many people behind the scenes of that.
100%. And you're one of them behind the scenes and in the scenes. And I appreciate all the work that you do.
Well, thank you.
And you've been a trailblazer for as long as I've known you. And I was wondering through this journey, has there been any like resources or anything that maybe you might want to share with community that might help them out in any way or spark them to help someone else's life, including their own?
Ooh, that's a good, because I could go a lot of ways with this. So let's see. Professionally, there are a lot of groups out there. And don't think that you have to like go through anything that you are working on, navigating, anything like that by yourself, because there are so many. Facebook is not dead, especially as much as they try. Facebook's not dead. So join those groups and find the spaces. I know I'm in a few Black professional groups like Sister Circle, Black Women in Tech. That is still one that's on my rotation. There's this group called Blacks in Technology that I also follow and participate with. If you want to pursue like community building as a professional, there are a lot of spaces. There's this group called CMX. They are great. There's also this group called Community Club. They also have really great resources of like how to build communities, and a lot of the stuff that they have, you can take into real life and allow yourself to build in those spaces. And then for finding the queer community, it's really funny. I really like how most queer dating apps, not like the gay ones, or how Hinge will have an adjacent or Tinder will have an adjacent, but like if you're talking about like Field or Her or Tammy, like they have community components to their apps. Warning, some of them are very horny. Like very. It's absurd. But if you join like the correct groups in there, that will help you drive community in those spaces. But there's a range. Is there anything specific you wanted me to go into in terms of the community side? Because I'm just like, there's so many.
That was perfect. Whatever just came off the top of the head, like
yeah,
that was perfect.
I was like, also, there's lots of like queer sports groups too, and it doesn't have to be like you have to be like good at sports, because gay dodgeball, gay kickball. Here in Chicago, our queer league is starting pickleball, and you could just go and like be social and make friends there, because they all go play the sports and then go hang out. And most of the sports, they sit and hang out and drink and make food and all of that throughout. So especially if you're trying to find community in new cities, either try to find the queer bar, try to find like a center that's there. Like here in Chicago, we have like the center on Halsted. In San Francisco, there's a center. In Oakland, there's the Oakland LGBTQ Center. They usually have tools and resources that can allow you to get involved in the community, especially if you don't want to do any partying or sports. They have other options that are there. So always check them out.
That's true. So we got one last question that we ask everyone that comes on. If you could describe radical acceptance and self-care in one word, phrase, or mantra, what would it be?
I was like, probably just freedom. I was like, there is a freedom in those moments. And I think as queer folks, we experience it a lot as we come into our identities, as we come into the people that we love, as we build our communities. It's almost like that layer just continues to like shed and shed and shed. And then you start to realize how much happier and more relaxed and honestly just more free you feel to be yourself. And I feel like that's where it goes. It doesn't come immediately, it doesn't come all at once, but it gets there. It gets there. It's a level of freedom.
Yeah. If you allow it to. Also, can anyone I don't know if you want to be followed, but if you would like to be followed, where can people find you?
Yeah. So first, please follow our podcast, Bad Queers Pod, on most social media platforms. And if you ever want to hit us up, you could email us at badqueerspodcast@gmail.com. And then I am at Shaina Has a Gram on Instagram, and anywhere else it's like Shaina Has a something. So I have Shaina Has a TikTok. I don't post anything there, so follow Bad Queers. I'm on Shaina Has a Twitter. I repost a lot of Beyonce things there, so if you want to see it. But the most well-rounded space is Shaina Has a Gram or Bad Queers Podcast.
Fantastic. And other than that, do you have any other shout outs or feel good about it?
No, I think this was great. I mean, shout out to you both. I was like, you all were part of my community when I lived in the Bay. Like, honestly, you opened it up so I could host one of my first parties when we did that that U.S. Women's National Team watch party, and we had all the lesbians and all the queers taking over the bar. So that was fantastic.
That was so awesome.
It was just great. I was like, wow, look at this. I can host an event. This is great. And you were the person that like helped to make it happen, made it as easy as possible and as seamless as possible. So I appreciate you. I know behind the scenes, Leah has always been person where if I hit her up and I'm like, hey, so we have this thing that we're thinking about. You may be open to it. Does this sound like a good idea? So shout out to you all for being a part of the community and the growth, especially in the early days of me working at her. I could not be more grateful for you both.
Oh, thank you. It was an honor at every step of the way, and I didn't even realize I don't even remember I opened that up for you, but I'm glad that that's a memorable thing and that I was able to help you see your power.
You did. Fully and truly. So, you sat and looked around. You came over. Yeah. It was a brief moment. You probably don't remember. You came over and you hit it, and you were like, yo, this is dope. And I said, yes. This worked. We did it because we were talking about it. We had to negotiate a little bit, and it worked out. And it was literally like I just took a chance to be like, hey, what if? And you said, yeah. And that's all anybody needs is just that one. Like, you know, everybody goes around and says, you need that one. Yes, it's true. It's very true. And you just need to encourage yourself to speak the ideas and see if you can make it happen.
Yeah, because those kinds of events aren't easy. I tried to do an event myself for my first time, and the turnout wasn't nearly as amazing. So that's why it takes a certain talent to be able to throw such a huge thing. And my boss was so ecstatic because he wanted more of a queer presence in the bar, whether that was women, non-binary. He just wanted more queer presence in the bar, being a queer gay bar owner. And he was even like, this is amazing. So that was probably one of my favorite days working at that bar.
Oh, that's so great to hear.
Thank you for that community building. And thank you for joining us here and your podcast like Trailblazer. And we look up to you and love what you put out there, and continue all the community building that you're doing, because it's wonderful.
Thank you so much. Brilliant.
We have so much more to explore and share with you on the pod. Tap that follow or subscribe button to get every episode as soon as it's released. And give us a 5-star rating or review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And join our wellness community on Instagram at Quest Wellness Pod. This podcast was produced in collaboration by Kinoko Chocolates and Puka Puka Creative. Executive producer, Stevie Kwa. Producer, editor, and sound designer, Leah Jackson. Associate producer, Rafaela Landestoy. Original music produced by Basque. His music is amazing. And we can't forget the emotional support by our fur babies, Frankie, Nugget, and Pukalani.
I was so worried that I was like, man, if I miss one question, the Beyhive is going to come for me.